welcome to part 5 of Mensteopathy. The development of mensteopathy is also the development of our relationship infrastructures we generate within our lives. In the understanding of the relationship structures you generate, you have to realize that now in the creation of your relationships, whether they be friendships, romantic, companions, or ultimately a higher love, which are the 4 Greek forms of love, all stemming from one particular meaning known as love. But in the understanding of how this love is manifested in your relationships, we have to dive into how you experience your expression of love and how you are essentially taught to express your expression of love. And understanding that your orientation that makes you who you are as a person, in terms of your forms of attraction, if you are now a child growing and you perceive more love from one parent than another, where do you think you will begin to start learning, this is where I receive love from in terms of people from the exact same sex of that particular parent, which then creates your orientation. And in your orientation does not define your entire personality. It is simply just a part of yourself. And in understanding a part of yourself, you must now understand that it is not up to others to have to accept you for yourself, but it is up to you to accept yourself for yourself. And the understanding of the relationships you create from the parent, you learn to see the love from their eyes from, is where you learn, you recognize love in that same sex eyes or different sex eyes as a child, because this is where the exchange of connection is relayed from spirit to spirit, from soul to soul, from being to being. And in understanding that when you exchange a connection, there is an exchange of essence known as resonance. And in this exchange of resonance, you begin the process known as mentalism, the theory of the mind, where you create the inferring known as echolocation, being able to infer or tell what is a person's internal state. And when you learn how to manifest that in your ability to project love outward, you then see how your relationships are affected. But how does your orientation now, what does your orientation mean about you? Well, the orientation itself has nothing to do with you. The behavior of sexual proclivity, on the other hand, has everything to do with you at that particular point now. Because this is where we see where the trauma stems from in individuals that have been hypersexualized in their parents or by a cousin or relative, an uncle. And then you see that from seeing of a previous generation a trauma stemmed, whether that be for women, typically all women, let's face it, all women have a story of sexual assault which began They're taking away of their innocence. But in understanding the trauma that which stems the rest of the negative patterns resulting in behavior beyond that point as a result of not being able to accept the self beyond that point. And that goes for both men and women, but predominantly women in that particular case. In the notion that the sexual proclivity or behavior of a particular individual is as a result of being hypersexualized, we then see the result now in our society, which, if we wish to have a more balanced state, we should actively be seeking to create a healing. We are actively seeing we could be at the end of times pretty soon here. We are at the threats of world war. We have just about an economic crash on the rise. And we are seeing that there is no such thing as love in the world anymore, because the world is run by people who themselves have been traumatized by a way of looking at things, a perspective from all walks of life. And so, in understanding this behavior, and where do we see the power struggle to achieve the power that that behavior seeks to achieve in order to seek the fulfillment that the experience gives? Where do we see where the power of the trauma creates the behavior? And this particular pattern relates to absolutely all behavior. The first initial onset of the discipline or trauma creates the impact of the fork. And now you have to say, well, I have this option or this option, but that is a simultaneous, instinctively put option. And that is where your patterns repeat themselves. The moment you change your instinct is where you begin to see where you can create a more peaceful and more well-oriented mankind, where we no longer see a divide based on belief or borders, but we can all actively say we all live here on earth. Do we really need to have a higher moral compass? I'll let you be the judge, because we have arrived here. And so, answer me this question. Does mankind need a higher power? And in this particular question, I'll leave you to reflect. Thank you.